Hello and welcome to the Print Soft Cover. My name is Udit Hinduja. I am joined by Ankush Datar and Mihir Patki. We are here launching their book, The Health and Wealth Paradox. This is something that I was very excited to read. It's a topic that's very close to my heart. So thank you both for joining us. Really appreciate it. And
Yep.
yes, we can get started straight away. So what I wanted to first ask you both is. Of course, this book it's very interesting, and you've written something below the title, which is how to use first principles thinking to achieve both health and wealth. So to start off, what exactly are first principles? Like, what do you mean by that?
So first principles means that any particular subject that you will, you break it down into the simplest of its factors, right? So we live in a world where a lot of misinformation is thrown at us, right? I'm sure you get all of this, right? That you buy a particular stock, it may double, or you eat avocado and you're going to get healthy. Don't consume vegetable oils, etc. So all of that is just information thrown at you with no structure in place. So what we have tried to do is give our readers a particular filter, which is quantitative, which is not based on just hearsay. There are things you can literally create Excel sheets for both your health and wealth, and pass all of that through these filters and come out with a plan that works for you.
Understood. Because I mean, I did notice that when I was reading the book, it is very like science based in nature, right? It seems as if you all have used a lot of scientific concepts and data driven evidence to put forth your arguments. So, for example, I was reading about the calories in boneless chicken, and then on the wealth
Yeah.
side, I'm reading about the power of compounding and asset allocation. So use these really scientific concepts and evidence based concepts. So what was your thought process behind that?
I think the thought process comes more from experience, which Mihir and I had, which comes down to actually how the book was made. So the book was actually made, so we term it serendipity. So Mihir and I did not even know each other till 2021. So you can find both of us on Twitter, probably tweeting some absolutely random thoughts that have got nothing to do with the book. And that's essentially what we were doing around 4 years ago. So there was a time where there was a COVID lockdown, and I personally had a lot of time along with work to write blogs, work on my writing, and work on things outside of work. So one of the pieces that which was in my head, which was the parallels between long-term investing and fitness, right? It's not just like a random thought which is in my head. It's something which I had been observing through my investing career, through my experience going to the gym, uh, following a certain diet, right? I saw all the principles converge together. Put out a blog post. Now, very coincidentally, Mihir was building his own startup at the time, and I just saw a workshop which he was putting up on Twitter, and he wrote the same thing. He was doing a workshop on nutrition and investing, the parallels. So I said, there's no one else doing this, no one else is talking about it. Why not share my blog? See what he has to think about it, right? And we saw the tweet, we got connected simply, right? And fast forward 3 4 years, here we are writing a book. Also thanks to our a couple of mutual friends who helped us along the way, right? Where we met, and the way this book came out is that once we met, the chapters actually came like clockwork. It was as though this book was meant to be written. We met, and the entire index, although the names of the chapters would be different, uh, I was just seeing my initial pitch deck. The chapters are exactly what we had discussed 3 to 4 years ago. So we're happy that that's how
I
it
mean,
came together.
these are things that if you meet any of our friends, what we've written in the book is what we talk about. Like it's become our identity. We shout hoarse about these things, and to the point of almost irritating friends and family. So writing the book was like it felt very natural.
No, absolutely, and I definitely got that impression. It didn't seem like one author was writing it. I mean, it didn't seem like two authors were writing it. It seemed as if like both of you all shared this common mind when you all were writing the entire book. So the flow was really nice. But still, writing a book, two people writing a book can be quite challenging, right? Like even though you all, let's say that you all share a lot of common ideas about health and wealth, there must have been some areas that, let's say, you all kind of locked heads on. So, I mean, firstly, were there any ideas like that? Were there any concepts like that where you all said, "Hey, listen, I don't necessarily agree with you"? And then, how did that kind of come about in the book, or were they all? Were all the ideas something that you all agreed on?
I don't think locked heads on as such. If you see, there are certain pockets where I'm writing my own experience. There would be a certain pocket where Mihir is documented his experience. So I don't think locked heads was the right word. It was kind of trying to find a middle ground somewhere. Actually, I know that's a question that generally even I've been asked outside this interview, that how do you manage to cross the ideas together without conflicting any ideas. But also that just goes to show further that two different people in different walks of life, right, we're finding such similarities. Why can't a million other people find those same similarities? We're pretty sure that we've documented it for the general public, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
you can add on to that.
Yeah.
If you want.
No, see, what we have written is all fact based, right? There's no opinion in there. So there's really no reason to lock horns or have different views. But we did have different views on one chapter. And ironically, that chapter is called Less is More. This is chapter number 3. So while it's called Less is More, it was the longest chapter in the whole book. And I was of the view that no, these are important things, these need to be there. And Ankush was of the view that, arey, less is more, naam hai, matlab itna mat likho, and let's make it simple. So that was just one a chapter where I think, well, not locked heads, but we had a lot of banter over that, and eventually managed to simplify and bring it down to a respectable length for a chapter that is named Less is More.
Okay, and y'all did mention that I think Ankur, you mentioned that you wanted to read this book is for, let's say, the millions of people who, of course, health and wealth are something, two concepts that are very very important to almost every single person, right? But the book, as I mentioned before, it does take a very scientific based approach, right? So, for example, in the investment and the wealth sections of it, you talk about these different concepts, like I said, asset allocation or the power of compounding. So, did you when you were writing this book, was there a particular target audience in mind? So for example, let's say people who are, let's say, in their 20s, 30s, early 40s, for example, who are working in the corporate sector or startups, or and who are also investing their earnings in the stock market, or they're making certain bets, etc. So was that the target audience you had in mind? Because that's the kind of language, so for some, personally, for somebody like me who is investing and who is kind of looking at the power of compounding and returns in different asset classes, etc., I was able to, let's say, understand a lot of the concepts. What about somebody who is not necessarily well versed with a lot of the terminology that you've used in your book? So, just in terms of who you wrote this book for in mind, is there a particular target audience you had?
Yes, as you rightly pointed out, typically individuals who start their corporate career, maybe at 20, 21, uh, they have this tendency to focus a lot on wealth creation. Uh, Within ambition, a lot of other things get overshadowed, and particularly health, because actually health is never a criteria per se to judge somebody. It's just wealth, status, ambition, how the person is doing. So naturally health takes a sideline unless someone takes their own initiative, or as we've documented also in the book, most of the time individuals start focusing on their health when they faced a severe tragedy. So we can quote multiple data points saying, India is going to be uh, the diabetes capital of the world. Half the population is going to be obese by 2035. These are actual data points, right? I'm not just quoting random figures. But people don't really care. People care only when the impact happens to them or their immediate families. Just like Mihir said, most of our friends circles, when we talk about health, right, many people may just shrug it off, right, till something happens to them. So the idea is that the target audience is these professionals, right, who started from the age of maybe 20, 21, towards the age of 45, 50. Why 45, 50, I say? Beyond a certain age, when an individual becomes very old, uh, they become set in their ways, they become they don't become very receptive to change. But this is the kind of formative years, or years when we're building a career, where we tend to forget the more common aspects. And this is the target audience, typically, that we were going to write for. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's easier to get started on this journey when you don't really need to. If you reach a point where you need to start on this journey later in life, you are already late, right? That doesn't mean you don't start the journey. I would like to cite two very, very different ages. So, one is Ankush's dad, and his story is documented in the book. So, he came into fitness only past the age of 60, and what he's achieved and what he's done is all there in the book. It's a brilliant story. And at the other end of the spectrum is my 9-year-old daughter, whom I have been teaching about, how to allocate her meals, like what food has heavy carbohydrate, what has protein, what has fat, and what she should be consuming. So really, these two fields, personal finance and health, fitness, nutrition, whatever you call it, are two core life skills. And no curriculum in the country or possibly anywhere in the world teaches these as life skills in a formal manner. So that was really my motivation to write the book. That this is leaving thoughts for my daughter, for people who are just starting their careers, or people who feel that they have come a long way in life and then realize that, oh, I should have focused on this. So to my mind, it's really timeless and ageless.
No, I absolutely agree. But did either of you have like some sort of a specific aha moment where you all said, "Hey, listen, this is why I want to write this book"? Is there something personal that you all would like to share as to why you all thought that this is information that you wanted out there?
Yeah.
So for
So,
me, yeah,
you
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Ankush, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so it's so I've been a big proponent of fitness and nutrition for donkey years, 14, 15 years, and I would assume that that's what makes somebody healthy, right? uh, Actually, that's not the case. So even I had kind of a rude awakening in terms of in the last 3 years, 3 years ago, sorry, I lost a family member to a sudden uh, heart attack, right? And actually, it's a moment that is still continues to scar me in a certain way. And he was someone who looked very normal, uh, looked like there was no issue at all. Uh, so I started to introspect, right? If that can happen to him, why can't it happen to me? There's no reason. We read a lot on the news also these days that uh, fit person dies despite following a fitness routine for 15, 20 years. So what is the core reason? The core reason is that health and fitness are, although they are interdependent on each other, they are two different things. So health is invisible to the naked eye, as we've documented in the book. What I mean by that is someone who has a lean physique, who has a six pack, right, who looks a certain way, you would assume that this is the peak of health. No, you ask this person to go and take a blood test. There is no, and the blood test is all over the place. This person has high cholesterol. This person has issues in terms of their triglyceride, and I was that person, right? So that's when I went deeper into the health aspect. So a lot of parallels with wealth as well, right? Wealth also, if I'm looking at somebody who's coming to me in a Ferrari, somebody who is throwing lavish parties and living a certain lifestyle on social media, the only data point that I have is that he has 2 crore less in the bank account because of his Ferrari. I don't know whether this person is actually wealthy or not. So just like health, wealth is invisible. So that's when these core ideas started to come to me, and this great moment was kind of the aha moment for me to kind of introspect more and write more about, to share it with the broader audience. Mihir, I think you'll be having something
Yeah.
similar as well.
Yeah. No, it always starts with a personal event, right? If you read about these things in media, it doesn't motivate you enough to begin your journeys on both these aspects. So for me, it was high blood pressure, high cholesterol, early onset of fatty liver, and I had to do something to change that. And that is when I got into a lot of deep research about how these things could be reversed. And I chanced upon, with the help of my cousin, a startup then called Squats. Now it's called Fitter. So Jitendra Choksi runs it, JC as he's called. And JC was the person through whom I learned a lot of this quantified nutrition. So it didn't start off saying that, okay, I want to get rid of these life conditions. Getting rid of these conditions was a byproduct of following a certain plan. Right? And I have been investing for several years. In fact, I think since 2004, 2005 or so. And I realized that, okay, these two have very similar patterns. So the workshop that Ankush mentioned that I had done for my startup was actually a way to market my startup at that point of time. We were self-funded, so we had to think of these creative ways to market ourselves. And I felt that, hey, we are doing something. My startup is related to investing, and everybody is talking about boring bits of investing and giving a lot of gyan. But here's something like parallels between investing and nutrition, which seems interesting and which could draw a lot of attention to the startup. And as I was making that presentation, doing that workshop, it felt like, that aha moment that you spoke about. Like, this is it. Like, this is what I should be doing. This is what I want my daughter to know. This is what I want my family to follow. So that's how it came about.
Yeah, and you know what was interesting to me is that how both of y'all really opened up to your own personal journeys in the book. So, for example, there was a section where, if I remember correctly, you guys even spoke about your meal plans, and you all broke down that meal plan along with the calories, etc., for each of those different items. And those are very personal pieces of information that you are sharing with people. How did you all feel about that? Just kind of sharing your personal journeys. Of course, one is on this interview, but the other is actually in the book where you shared a lot of personal information. So was that something that of course you were clearly comfortable doing it, but was that a decision that you all kind of took right at the start, or as you were writing the book, you all felt like you wanted to add more and more personal information so that people could maybe relate to it more?
It's I think it's something that people call gyan, but basically when you read or when you go to chat gpt google, you can just find the answers to, honestly you can find the answers to all the questions you have. If you have a certain question, there is chat gpt, there is ai, there's no lack of information, right? Why is the reader coming to us? The reader is imagining their own story within our story, right? So I'm pretty sure that there could be readers who would imagine their own work day, right? Have a long work day, rushing to work. How are you planning your day? Try to emulate it. Try to put yourself in our shoes, because generally the reader does not want to be told what to do. The reader wants to go on the journey with you. So that is more of the inspiration.
Yeah.
Gyan is
I don't
the
know
key word.
if you look at these plans, my plan and Ankush's plan, both in terms of investing, our asset allocation there, and in terms of our calorie allocation, both are very different.
Different, yeah,
But we achieve
correct.
the same result. So that was also one of the reasons for sharing this personal plan, that there is no one right answer. There is one right principle, maybe, or multiple right principles, but
Correct.
you have to build out your own plan.
Hmm. And look, the book also is providing people, like you said, it's providing people with kind of like a blueprint, right, on kind of how to achieve like a kind of a balance between health and wealth. But there's also just so much information out there, and you also, of course, have a chapter in your book on this excess of information that is there in the world. Like just a regular corporate youngster kind of going about his day wants to kind of get started on of course building wealth, and of course also improving his or her health. I mean, where does that person start? Like, what is that first step that somebody should take to kind of build out that blueprint?
I'm going to be
Well,
shameless here and say that you buy the book. That's the first
By the
step.
book.
Right.
All right,
I
so
thought that
even
was
within the
right.
book, like where do you start, right? Like, do I focus on my health? Do I focus on my wealth? Do I focus on two of them together? There's just so much to do, right? While also taking care of your full-time job, while also looking at your family, while also trying to maintain a social life. all of these things, right? So how do you go about it?
I mean, it's
So
not a choice really, that right? That I will focus on health first and wealth first. I mean, both these things can be literally put on autopilot if you plan it right. Right.
Hmm.
So, you mentioned social life. So, I eat out a lot. I hang out with a lot of friends. I host a lot of parties at home. But there are certain very small things which, if you keep in mind, you can do all of this without restricting yourself too much. For example, I don't have desserts. Right. I mean,
Hmm.
I just don't have sugar. So, if I'm eating out, I avoid the dessert.
Hmm.
You go out, I will not order a butter naan. I may just order a plain naan. Right.
Hmm.
I may have more of say non-fried starters. Right?
Hmm.
So what people think is that okay, if you have to restrict your calories or eat in a certain plan, everything else is a complete no-no. But
Hmm.
even if you don't follow it 100% and follow it 50%, you will see results because our lifestyles have become like so bad that we are at the absolute hilt of unhealthy eating. Right.
Hmm.
So even if you skip alcohol, you skip liquid calories. So if you just skip juices, soft drinks, etc., you won't believe the impact it will have on you without
Hmm.
restricting your social
Hmm.
activities.
Hmm. So
it's
And
even
same
small
is
more
the
than
case
change.
that.
with
With a
Sorry.
small change,
yeah.
like he said, with a small change. So what? So documented the story of my dad also, who was 62. He was a heart patient. He's still around. He's a heart patient. He's a diabetic. He could barely bend his back at the time. Today, fast forward 3.5 years, he can do a 150 kg deadlift. So, what is the basic idea of this? If you have a look, it's just making one small change every day. It's not about making a
Hmm.
massive plan. The plan is,
Hmm.
like you said, the blueprint. Make those small changes and slowly let them compound. Like you said, is it health or wealth? Right? If you're doing neither, then I think the best way also in terms of wealth is to also try to hire a good financial advisor. Very honestly, there is also a
Hmm.
chapter on the price and value of paying. What is the
Hmm.
value that you get out of a financial advisor, trainer, nutritionist? So if you really don't have that motivation or self, that it's not coming from inside, then it's okay to also look at an advisor, a nutritionist, because yeah, so try to evaluate the value you're getting out of these professionals versus the cost that you're paying. There's an entire
Hmm.
chapter.
and it's more about what you don't do rather than what you do. Right. So if you avoid most of the bad stuff, you'll be left with the good stuff. And
Hmm.
that is something which only requires self-control, right? Nothing else. Right? For
Hmm.
example, like I said, if you avoid the liquid calories, you avoid sugar, you are like almost there. Like same is the case in investing. If you avoid investing on tips, if you avoid FNO, if you avoid those stories where somebody got rich overnight, which reeks of survivorship bias, right? If you avoid
Hmm.
all of those factors, you are home. So it's
Hmm.
more about what you don't do rather than what you actually do.
Understood. And just to kind of zoom out a bit, what I of course, I personally, so I, for example, right now I'm 33. Very recently I lost somebody to a heart attack. So heart attacks right now, of course, are a big concern. I feel like it's happening to people who are younger and younger as time is going by. um, do you think that there are certain kind of principles in your book that maybe policymakers can adapt to kind of drive some kind of a societal change in a way? So of course there is one is on the individual level, which is what we've spoken about, but just from a policy level, do you think that there's something that we should be doing to kind of address this issue?
I think that would be giving us too much credit to say that the book can bring about a change at the policy level. But some things that I would really like happening in my lifetime is if both these topics get introduced as skills for schools, so that when you catch them young, right? When the kids are just coming out of school, they are aware of what nutrition is, what calories are, what equity is, what debt is, what asset allocation is, etc. Right. Some of the things we are seeing, like if you pick up any food packet, you will see the calorie profile, the carb,
Mm,
protein, fat composition, as well as the calories, the ingredients, etc., which I think we have much better disclosures today than we had 10 years ago.
Hmm.
The problem is people don't know how to read that. And there
Hmm.
are a lot of people doing good work in this aspect. Like there's a food farmer. Everybody's heard of him. Right?
Correct.
So he's doing a lot of good work creating fun content around how to read these labels.
Hmm.
But
So on a policy level,
no,
there are a couple of case studies that you
yeah,
can you
yeah.
can look at. For example, so there's which we documented the case of Chile. So Chile started a case of food awareness, right? By if you have certain ingredients which are harmful, where researchers have kind of considered these chemicals as harmful, rather than the back, put it at the front of the label, right? The consumer
Hmm.
does not have to turn at the back, right?
Hmm.
Simple thing. So you put those at the front and the remaining at the back, right? There are a
Hmm.
couple of American studies also which we put that if schools contract and work with healthy food companies, uh, test scores of students have gone up by 3 to 4 standard deviations. So globally, there have been a lot of policies that we can see. But in terms of health checkup, I think there is a lot of communication, right, which is happening. Take a lipid profile test, take a blood sugar test, take an insulin test. But that's something, end of the day, that individuals, they have to take their own initiative on, right?
Hmm.
Taking a blood test. I can, for example, if Chile, for example, which I took, they take the initiative. They've done the work for you, right? They've
Hmm.
given you. They've ensured that manufacturers are showing the harmful ingredients up front. But something
Hmm.
like a government communicating me to take a blood test, that's
Hmm.
something which I will have to do on my own, right?
Hmm.
So
No, that's true. That's true.
yeah.
In fact, that kind of also brings me to my next question. Um, a lot of books that kind of focus on health or wealth. Of course, yours is one of the few where I've seen the focus is on both, right? I guess the challenge that many people face is that, okay, fine, I've got all of this knowledge from the book, but now how do I kind of use that and drive actionable change, right? I think one is of course the consumption of the knowledge, the other is actually implementing that knowledge and making a change, so is there any way that firstly have you all kind of addressed this in the book at all in any way, or do you feel like, okay, the onus is finally on the person who is consuming this knowledge? We've told them what needs to be done. We've given them the first principles thinking. We've given them the blueprint, but now it's all in their hands. Because a lot of books kind of will give you that information, but to kind of take that final step, of course, it's always up to that. It's always up to the person. But how do you all see that? How do you all see people kind of driving that change?
So there are stories in the book. For example, Ankush's dad's story, where there's a picture of this calendar with cross marks on all days, right? So that's how he got consistent. Right? So whenever
Hmm.
he went to the gym, he just executed his plan. That's it, right? So it's all about showing up, right? And he
Hmm.
marked that X. So our thought is that through these personal stories, rather than like just me saying that okay, all you got to do is show up, is just giving gyan. But saying that look, here's a person who showed up and these are the results, right? I feel that is something that will get our readers to act on the book. And I
Hmm.
would really love it if, post reading the book, people start putting out things on social media of what change they have seen, right?
Hmm.
And that is something that will help people on their journeys and maybe motivate other people. Ki, okay, this guy is doing it or this person is doing it.
Hmm.
Let me also give it a try.
Hmm. Have
And
there been
also
any
the book
early? I'm sorry, Ankur, go on.
the, the book is written in chronological order. The idea is that not to go too fast through the book, just to finish the book. Take down notes. So for example, the first few chapters where which are kind of the core principles. Like once you find a plan, how do you use that plan to navigate across information overload? How do you delay gratification with the plan? How do you use the power of compounding? Essentially, it's using the plan to eh, get away and use the plan to essentially harness whatever the book has to offer. I say like Mihir said, take it slowly, take down notes, read it in chronological order. There could be certain jargons also which can be skipped, which are more for professional investors. The idea is
Hmm.
to read it in chronological order and absorb the book and try to share it. That's a
Hmm.
great idea actually. which can kind of do community sharing of notes to.
Yeah.
No, no, absolutely. Have there actually been any early readers who have reached out to you guys and said, "Hey, listen, this was great, and I actually have implemented a couple of these blueprints or a couple of this kind of first principles thinking to my lifestyle." Has anyone reached out to you all yet and shared any
No,
stories?
I think it's too soon to see any
I would be
results.
suspicious if someone said
Yeah,
this.
yeah, that would have been suspicious. But there are a lot of people for whom I have created investing plans or their nutrition plans, and they have been the first buyers of the book. And
Hmm.
for them, it's like this aha moment. Arey, yes, yes, you had told me this thing a few years back. Now it's elaborated a little bit more in detail in the book. So we've been getting those kind of reactions.
Okay, great, great.
Yeah, if someone replies
Yeah,
too fast, then it defeats the purpose of this entire book.
yeah. Then you know that they haven't really gone through it properly, and they've just told you that, hey, listen, we've implemented everything, and now we are set. Yeah. No, no, that's it. So I just wanted to thank you both for your time. And of course, just for everyone else, this is the Health and Wealth Paradox. It's published by HarperCollins. You can get your copies today. Thank you, Ankush. Thank you, Mihir, so much. Really, really appreciate this discussion. It was a pleasure speaking to both of you. And of course, it's a very, very relevant topic. So I really do hope that people can learn a lot from the knowledge that you guys have put together in this book.
Thank you so much, Udit. Thank you.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you. Thank you.